9 Times Percy Saved a Friend by Liana Legaspi. Chapter 2. Raina and Leah. Raina. Raina had done many things in her fairly short life. She'd worked for a powerful sorceress, been kidnapped by pirates, escaped to Camp Jupiter, and become praetor of said camp. But never in her entire life had she felt so ridiculous, embarrassed. Honestly, either one would work. Maybe it was because Raina had never attended Goody High School, or any real school for that matter, so she didn't realize what kind of boy Neil really was. When the handsome blonde friend of Rachel approached her, asking her to a school dance, she had had no idea that her date wouldn't show. So Raina was just left alone in the school gymnasium with a bunch of people either A, too immature to even think about socializing with, B, too snobby to even politely pretend to listen to, C, too popular to even try talking to. Leah released a small, rigid breath. Neil was a nice guy. Responsible, charming, sweet, kind of like Jason. And she was honestly looking forward to the evening, something she didn't know was even possible. Raina was even wearing makeup and a dress for Jupiter's sake. She stoically sipped her punch and watched the other couples dance to some boy band. It was always like this, she mused. Other girls got their dream boy, and Raina got sidelined. It wasn't something to obsess over. She was disappointed, yes, but she wasn't that kind of girl. Some girls worried about getting their cell phones taken away and embarrassing herself in public. Raina dealt with demigods older and younger than her, treacherous, power-hungry augurs, and couldn't break under pressure or show any doubt. A boy shouldn't be such a huge deal to her, shouldn't affect her so much. But it was. Jason, Percy, Neil. Every guy Raina was ever attracted to either turned her down right off the bat or led her on. And it hurt. It wasn't about social status or just for the heck of it. Raina needed someone who she could trust, open up to, who had her back and carry her when she wanted to give up. Before boys, Raina relied solely on Hilla. She was her big sister, the one that solved all her problems and stared down a pirate twice her size for so much as looking at her baby sister. But it was them against the world. It was them against the world, and nothing could stop them. Hilla was Raina's hero and only comfort. So naturally, when Hilla left, Raina was demoralized, horrified even. And then Raina met Jason, the stiff, disciplined son of Jupiter that grated on Raina's nerves for reasons she didn't even know. It wasn't a spontaneous thing. In fact, it took her a full year and a quest to finally warm up to him. But when she did, Jason proved to be a brilliant ally and friend, someone she could count on and trust. Over time, maybe something more. But then Venus appeared to her. Her eyes were sympathetic, and she patted Raina's knee. But neither actions could soften the blow of the goddess's words. The son of Jupiter isn't yours to keep, Raina. There was more, of course, but that was the main gist. Raina and Jason weren't meant to last long, and when the goddess of love was the one to say it, there was really no stopping it. Still, she tried. She truly did. Raina did her absolute best to hold on to stay Raina and Jason. Her whole world flipped when a meddling goddess decided to snatch Jason away from Camp Jupiter from her and give her the son of Neptune. Instead, everything came crashing down around her. Octavian, the cohorts, the Senate, and Raina knew it was childless, but she couldn't help think, no, I want the other one! Give it back! She didn't dare voice her demands, but Juno had given her a steady commanding look like, put up with him, and Jason will return. Needless to say, Raina took the deal, though she wasn't exactly thrilled by it. Her world completely went into apocalypse when she realized the son of Neptune was Percy Jackson, the one and only little sea spawn who had destroyed her home and was now apologizing for it, even though we had no memory of ever doing so. Percy had taken her by surprise. Really? It was just a couple of measly little words that didn't alter anything of the past, but they managed to plant a small, irrational, and desperate seed of hope in her. Venus said Jason wasn't the one, but here Percy was, powerful and unbeatable, yet so alone. Lacking. In hindsight, it was stupid and brash. But yeah, she made a move on Percy Jackson and he turned her down for a girl he barely remembered. And when the Greeks' flying warship landed, Raina would realize that it was the Annabeth Chase, the girl with the clever gray eyes and the blonde curly hair that Raina once combed and plaited. It hurt, But she could swallow that. Percy and Annabeth were clearly a team back then, so why not now? Judging from their little reunion, they truly cared about each other. And that was acceptable. Sweet even. However, the brunette hanging off of Jason's arm was not, repeats, not okay. And now Neil. The daughter of B'Elanna smiled a little ruefully. Well, that was pretty much the sad, pitiful rut that was Raina's love life. A small, obnoxious snapped Raina out of her musings, and she felt Chiffon brush up against her arm. Her eyes darted up to see a girl with dark skin and hair stare down at her a little angrily. "You're Neil's date, right?" she demanded. Raina looked over the girl carefully, gauging her unexplainable temper. "I'm Raina," she said, polite but not too cold. "And you are?" The other girl grinned humorlessly, and Raina wondered just how many whitening strips she used. "I'm Tess." She noisily chewed her bubble gum as she looked over the daughter of B'Elanna, and the way Tess gazed at her combined with the noise made Raina want to squirm in her seat. After she finished her unconsented scrutiny, she snorted. "No wonder Neil didn't show," Tess idly remarked. The daughter of B'Elanna's eyebrow twitched up, and she pursed her lips a little. Well, that was straight to the point. "You're friends with Neil?" Raina asked, deciding to not rise to the other girl's bait. Tess popped her gum and inspected her nails. Actually." "Ah. Well, that explained a lot." Tess narrowed her eyes at Raina and loomed over her in an attempt to look menacing. "You just stay away from him," she hissed. "Neil and I have gone through way too much to let some slut come between us. So back off and go chase after some other poor soul." It was just 3 average-length sentences. In just 3 average-length sentences, Tess accomplished what not many could. Raina snapped, blood roared in her ears, and all she saw was red. "Gone through way too much," Raina thought angrily. "Gone through way too much is going on countless life-threatening quests. It's being told by a love guide that she didn't approve of your relationship, but holding on anyways. It's staying loyal even if he completely shatters your heart and rescuing his ungrateful corpse. It's saving the world together and watching him kiss another girl. It's being happy for him even if it kills you more than anything and leaves you more hollow and alone than you could have ever been." Raina was just about to tell Tess what exactly too much was when a lean, muscular arm slung over her shoulders. "Think you got the wrong girl, Tess," he said, voice light but unique green eyes, hard and piercing. "Raina's actually my date." The daughter of B'Elanna schooled her features instantly and played along, leaning into her date, although she was still inwardly fuming. To Raina, Percy's performance felt awkward and so painfully fake from seeing him when he was really in love, but Tess seemed to eat it right up. Her eyes were wide. She was no longer chewing her gum, thank God, and she stumbled over her words. "Oh, Neil said... Oh, I'm so sorry." He gave her a lopsided grin and said something about it being cold. And while Raina thought it looked more like he was baring his teeth than actually smiling, Tess flushed and sheepishly smiled back. A moron and a hypocrite. "I'll just leave you two to... whatever," Tess stammered, already walking away, heels clicking loudly against the floor. Raina glanced up at Percy and couldn't help but smile a little. Whatever good this suit did him was completely undone by his untamable messy hair. Her eyes darted around the gym, searching for a familiar head of curls. "Don't tell me Annabeth stood you up?" Percy tilted his head in contemplation, but he was smiling a little. "Sort of," he shrugged. "Emergency on Olympus. Something about Ares' statue being too big to fit into his temple. She told me to come here anyways." He studied her. "What about you?" Raina kept her breathing even in order to keep from blushing in shame, a trick she'd learned long ago. "I really did get stood up." She cracked a wry grin. "It seems I have worse luck than Leo." Percy's eyes looked at her pityingly, and Rhea huffed irritably. She was a praetor for Jupiter's sake. There was no way in Pluto she'd talk about her many failed attempts to keep a guy. How sad would that be? Raina averted her gaze and sipped her drink. Gods, if she kept this up, she'd be worse than a daughter of Aphrodite. Percy hummed in amusement, and Raina caught a small, passively excited twinkle in his eyes that he'd just had a great idea and couldn't wait to share it. At a questioning look, Percy grinned at her and said, "Want to dance?" Raina stared at him, sighing a little. It was a wonder he'd survived Camp Jupiter. It truly was. "Come on," he said, nudging her shoulder gently. "It's got to be the first time you've done something normal in a while." Actually, it was her very first time, but Raina wasn't telling him that. "You came all the way from camp," he continued. "I think you deserve at least one dance." Raina opened her mouth to protest, but she made the mistake of looking into his eyes. A deeper, sincere look graced his features, and oh gods, how did Annabeth ever win with this boy? "Someone owes you a dance," he said quietly. If it were anyone else, Raina would have either died from embarrassment or coldly told them that she had no idea what they were talking about. But this was Percy, and he looked so genuinely sympathetic and understanding. There was no way she could turn down that face, and judging from the tone of his voice, Percy knew exactly what kind of thoughts had been running through her mind. The daughter of Balana let him lead her onto the dance floor. It was romantic. Raina had seen what the children of Aphrodite called Persebeth, and nothing could break that. Who would even want to? But it was better than Raina ever expected. Maybe she didn't have a boyfriend who'd always be there and would go to the ends of the world for her. But at least she had Percy, a friend who would do that and more. And frankly, Raina was totally okay with that. Leo could never stay in one place. He ruefully smiled at that as he slung his backpack over his shoulder. He was like a wildfire. Everywhere he went, he made a mess. His mom, New Rome, dropping Percy and Annabeth into Tartarus. Leo winced at the shrieks from Cabin 6 and picked up the pace, guilt rising in his throat. They didn't need him. Really, they'd be much better off without him. It'd be safer for everyone if he just left Camp Half-Blood before he could destroy that, too. The fire started in the break room, they said, right where Leo was standing. He'd survived by some miracle, but what kind of child locked the doors of his mother's workplace, knowing she was inside, and started a fire? Leo stumbled into the stables and cursed when the Pegasi started panicking. That was just so like him. He dumped his bag on the floor and raised his hands in a calming gesture. Hey, easy ponies, he said, trying to soothe them, but more than half of them snorted indignantly. Leo vaguely remembered something about Percy telling him and the other members of the Seven how much Pegasi despised My Little Ponies inside. Something about how a unicorn couldn't just sprout wings whenever they felt like it. How did they even know about that show? Shh, he tried again, stroking a black Pegasus's muzzle. See, I'm not going to hurt you. At least I'll try not to. Leo bit his lip and struggled with the saddle. Gods, he traveled by flying mechanical dragons and warships, not horses. He didn't exactly possess the same type of skill with them like Percy did. All Leo knew how to do was manipulate fire, which was a no-go because of Frank's predicament. He couldn't even use a sword. On the quest, all that was required of him was designing the Argo 2, which anyone could have done, and steer it, which Jason probably, and Percy could handle without using the Wii remote. So, instead of doing anything useful like everyone else, Leo was dead weight and the sole reason Percy and Annabeth had to literally go through hell. Brilliant work, Leo, really. He finds a family willing to accept him, quirks and all, and in repayment, he sends the big brother and sister into Tartarus, home of all things evil. Leo rested his hands on the Archimedes sphere, which now sat on the helm, ready to be installed. He should have been excited. It was the biggest discovery of his life. Even bigger than Bunker 9. If he could decipher Archimedes' scrolls, he could do amazing things. He hardly dared to hope, but he might even be able to build a new control disk for a certain dragon friend of his. Still, the price would have been too high. He could almost hear Nemesis laughing. I told you we would do business, Leo Valdez. He had opened the fortune cookie, he'd gotten the access code for the sphere, and saved Frank and Hazel. But the sacrifice had been Percy and Annabeth. Leo was sure of it. It's my fault, he said quietly, misery coating each word. Leo stared at his handiwork blankly. Given time, he could build a teleportation device with nothing more than a fan, paperclips, a lawnmower, and lots of duct tape. So how in Hades could he not understand the basics of a freaking saddle and reins? He bit back an irritated sigh and gripped the straps of his backpack. Guess he'd just have to walk this one. Just thinking about it made Leo tired, but he'd manage, like always. A voice rang out from the entrance of the stables. Wow, it said, still croaky and sluggish from sleep. You didn't pay attention to Lacey's riding lessons at all, huh? Leo froze, adrenaline pumping through his veins at being caught. He dimly realized that Annabeth wasn't screaming anymore. "Yeah," he said hesitantly, forcing a small laugh and sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. "Didn't really pay attention to Malcolm's history lessons either." Percy snorted and rubbed the tiredness out of his eyes before looking at Leo. "Little late for a ride, don't you think?" The fire user was too ashamed to even look at his friend, let alone lie to him. He watched mutely as Percy glided past him, clad in nothing but flannel pants, and stared at the scars stretching across his back, their pale color standing out against Percy's tan. "Oh, gods," Frank said, clutching Percy with shaking arms, watching the blood ooze out with horrified fascination. Jason instantly composed himself and barked, "Hazel, Piper, get the infirmary ready. Leo, Frank, take care of Annabeth." He took Percy from the shapeshifter and flew him up to the Argo so fast it parted Piper's hair. His friends rushed around frantically, not even arguing with Jason's orders, and trying to accomplish them as quickly as possible, but Leo could only stare at the small pool of blood Percy left behind. It was all his fault. Leo swallowed down his bile, and the son of Poseidon unlatched the saddle and reins before redoing them swiftly and meticulously on a different, smaller Pegasus, one that was more Leo-sized. "You know, I felt like running away one time," Percy mused aloud. Leo's stomach twisted guiltily. "Oh?" It felt like a rock was lodged in his throat. Percy nodded. "Only a year ago, too." Leo shifted a little and swallowed. "What happened?" The son of Poseidon untangled the reins, and he smiled a little ruefully. "It was during the Titan War." Leo frowned a little at that. The older boy's fatal flaw was personal loyalty, something that was painfully obvious to everyone. Why would he even be thinking about running when his friends needed him? "Morpheus and Hecate cast a sleeping spell over Manhattan," Percy continued. "Mortals were passed out on the streets, in stores, cars, everywhere." He shook his head. "When I saw it, I was so angry, and all that was going through my head was, what in Hades did they do to my city?" Leo almost felt sympathetic for Kronos' army. Normal Percy was bad enough, but an enraged Percy? No wonder the Titans lost. "I didn't really think about it until I saw my mom and stepdad unconscious." He barked out a startled, slightly watery laugh. "They weren't even in danger, really, but I was scared. They were my parents, and they were in the middle of a war because of me." Leo glanced down. He knew the feeling, the guilt. "Manhattan was asleep and turning into a battlefield, and it was all my fault." Percy furrowed his brows. "I wanted to run away right then and there, before I could make it worse and lead everyone I cared about to their graves." Leo stared at him, stunned, and then pressed his lips into a thin line. "You retrieved Zeus's master bolt and Hades' helm," he argued. "You got the golden fleece and saved Jason's sister." Leo snorted a little. Now the thought of anyone saving Thalia sounded like trying to protect a mountain. "Dude, you even held up the sky and earned Artemis's respect. And more!" He looked at Percy, drained, guilt written all over his face. "At least you were able to fix what you broke. You defeated Kronos in the end." Percy tipped his head and pointed out offhandedly. "Actually, it was Luke." "But they needed you," Leo blurted. "There was no way the gods would have won without you." "There was no way we would have defeated Gaia without you, either." Leo snorted bitterly. "Don't even try to make me feel better. I was the seventh completely useless wheel of the quest. Nico, Clarice, Raina, anyone would have made a much better match for the quest than me. I'm not—" The son of Poseidon looked into Leo's eyes with steely resolve, and the younger boy snapped his mouth shut on instinct. "Yeah?" Percy asked. "Well, no one else could have tamed Festus, or invented a flying warship, or hold Chione back, or crack the Archimedes sphere. It needed to be you. You've done so many things, and you don't even realize it. Every step of the way, we needed you." Percy's eyes glazed over a little. "You think I'm something? In the end, all I really needed to do was hand Luke a knife. You're more of a hero than I am." Leo didn't believe that last line for a single second, and neither would anyone else. But everything what Percy said, well, there wasn't much of an argument he could make. Percy stepped away from the Pegasus, patting its back before looking at the younger boy. "The choice is honestly yours," he said, shrugging, but his eyes looked regretful. "I can't force you to stay. I don't think anyone ever could, but..." Percy faltered a little.
Just know that I was being honest. Okay?
The son of Poseidon handed his friend the reins and silently walked away, head bowed and shoulders sagged. Leo stared down at the leather straps. He messed up a lot. Everything he touched generally wound up breaking. No doubt about it, but hey, he was a demigod, a son of Hephaestus. Fixing was kind of his shtick. Smiling, Leo guided the Pegasus back into its stall and grabbed his backpack. The very next day, Percy, looking glum and very, very tired, would look up to see Leo with his siblings chatting away and fiddling with a mess of wires and rubber bands, and a smile brighter than anything Leo had ever seen before would spread across Percy's face at the realization that his friend was there to stay. And Leo would be very, very glad that for once he didn't run away.